When we think of Japan, what are the first things that come to mind? Anime, sushi, or maybe the reputation of a disciplined people? Yes, these are well-known stereotypes we often associate with this fascinating nation. But today, I propose we set aside these preconceived images for a moment. Comfortably seated with a bowl of ramen by our side, let's embark on a different journey through Japan. Get ready to explore 25 surprising facts about the land of the rising sun, far beyond the cliches. It's crucial to remember that not all Japanese people are fans of manga and anime. Not everyone has sushi as part of their daily diet, and surprisingly, not everyone is extremely polite. These generalizations only scratch the surface of a rich and complex culture. Today, let's break these stereotypes and look at Japan from a new perspective, unraveling the layers that make up its true essence. Japan is globally known as the home of anime, manga, and cosplay. These forms of art and cultural expression have deep roots in the country, attracting fans from all over the world. However, it's a common misconception to assume that all Japanese people share this passion. Similarly, it would be an exaggeration to say that all Americans are baseball fans, or that everyone has a gun at home. Each person has their own interests and preferences, which may or may not include their country's most famous cultural traditions. It's common to think that sushi is everyone's favorite food in Japan, since it's usually the dish that comes to mind when we think about Japanese cuisine. However, this simplistic view overlooks the diversity of eating habits in Japan. Interestingly, not all Japanese people are fans of raw fish. This myth is similar to the one that links Americans to daily cheeseburger consumption and Germans to a constant diet of schnitzel and beer. These generalizations don't reflect the complex and varied reality of food preferences in any culture. There's a widespread image that Japanese people are always polite and respectful, a perception supported by observing their daily behavior. Indeed, in Japan, public order and politeness are quite noticeable. People tend to be quiet in places like the subway, avoid littering in inappropriate places, and greet each other with bows. These behaviors reflect a culture rich in traditions and mutual respect. However, this respect for formalities doesn't mean that Japanese people are cold or unapproachable. On the contrary, once you earn their trust and friendship in more relaxed settings, you realize they have the same nuances and imperfections as anyone else. The difference is that many Japanese people express their true individuality only in more private and safe environments. Let's debunk some interesting facts about Japan that might surprise you. The word geisha, which means person of the arts in Japanese, refers to an ancient profession that still exists today. While commonly associated with women, geishas are not exclusively female. In fact, the first geishas were men who appeared in the 17th century in Kyoto, and their purpose was to entertain the public. Many people don't know this, but karaoke has its roots in Japan, emerging in the second half of the 20th century. The term karaoke literally means empty orchestra. Today, this musical pastime drives a global market worth about $1 billion. Interestingly, there's a theory that suggests the concept of karaoke might have originated in the United States as early as the 1950s, serving as a prototype for what we know today. In Japan, it's common for the whole family to share the same bathwater, starting with the oldest member and ending with the children. For the Japanese, water not only cleanses the body, but also holds a deep symbolism of purification. This value is evident in religious practices, where visitors to temples are encouraged to wash their hands and mouth before praying. Historically, even monks would open temple baths for the less fortunate to use, reinforcing the idea of water as an element of purification accessible to everyone. In many parts of the world, it's normal for each street to have a name and each residence a specific address. However, in Japan, this isn't always the case. Except in places like Kyoto and some areas of Hokkaido, it's rare to find named streets. Japanese urban planners have traditionally favored a more organic and less geometric layout, avoiding the design of streets that intersect at 90-degree angles, which is common in many Western cities. Because of this, over the centuries, many Japanese streets have developed without names, following a more winding and fluid pattern, much like a river. Japan is facing a significant demographic challenge. The country's population is rapidly aging. Data shows that in 2017, the birth rate fell to its lowest level in 120 years. At the same time, It's interesting to note that there are currently more pets than children in Japan. This phenomenon is worsened by the fact that many young Japanese are choosing not to have children. These trends are leading to a continuous decline in the number of young people, raising concerns about the future of Japan's population. Discussions about the sustainability of this situation are increasing, with questions about whether this trend of aging and population decline can be reversed, or if it might lead to the gradual disappearance of the Japanese nation. In Japan, an interesting phenomenon has been observed in the diaper market. Adult diapers are outselling baby diapers. This reflects the dramatic demographic shift in the country, where the elderly population is not only growing, but also reaching remarkable longevity milestones. With an increasing number of centenarians, projections suggest that by 2060, the average life expectancy for Japanese men will be 85 years, while for women, it will reach 90 years. In Japan, the laws about late-night dancing have some unique quirks. Until recently, dancing after midnight was prohibited without a special permit, and places like nightclubs needed a specific license to let patrons dance. This restriction led many nightclubs to turn into bars at midnight, lowering the music volume and limiting dancing activities. However, starting in 2016, these rules were relaxed. In Japan, ethnic diversity is less visible than in many other countries. About 98% of the population is ethnically Japanese, resulting in a notable cultural homogeneity on the streets. This uniformity is partly due to the country's strict immigration policies. Japan has one of the lowest immigration rates in the world, reflecting a cautious approach to globalization. Getting a residency visa is a rigorous process, usually reserved for those marrying a Japanese citizen or highly skilled professionals. Additionally, many of the most sought-after global talents tend to prefer destinations like the US and Canada, where they perceive better financial and job opportunities. Culturally, Japan also presents significant challenges for integration, as its rich and complex culture can be difficult for foreigners to assimilate, combined with a relatively low receptiveness to non-natives. In Japan, a peculiar Christmas tradition has been attracting attention since 1974, celebrating the holiday with KFC fried chicken. This tradition started with an unusual idea from Takashi Okawara, then a manager at a KFC in Japan. He came up with the concept of a Christmas bucket, a generous portion of wings and chicken breast in a basket decorated with Christmas themes. Okawara was inspired after hearing that foreigners in Japan missed their traditional Christmas turkey and saw an opportunity to offer fried chicken as a festive alternative. The idea became a huge hit, leading customers to wait in lines for up to 3 hours during Christmas. This phenomenon not only popularized KFC as Christmas food in Japan, but also boosted the chain's expansion to 1,165 stores. Takashi, the pioneer of this tradition, rose to become the company's CEO in 1984, successfully leading the business until 2002. Yuki Daruma are a charming version of snowmen in Japan, characterized by being made with just 2 snowballs. This simple design is inspired by Daruma dolls, which are symbols of perseverance and luck. The name Yuki Daruma combines Yuki, the Japanese word for snow, with a reference to Bodai Daruma, a key historical figure in Zen Buddhism. In Japan, eating while walking is frowned upon, despite the abundance of fast food and street food options like onigiri. Japanese culture values respect and consideration for others, and eating on the go is seen as poor etiquette. Traditionally, when someone buys a meal or snack, they're expected to find a quiet spot to enjoy it without disturbing those around them. This norm is especially important during festivals and public events. Although there are exceptions during celebrations, not following this practice can still affect how others perceive you. In Japan, making noise while eating, especially slurping, is seen as a sign that you're really enjoying your meal. Contrary to what many might think, this behavior is considered polite and even encouraged. So if you're savoring a dish, don't hesitate to show your pleasure by eating noisily. It's a way to compliment the chef and show that you're enjoying the food. Japan stands out globally as one of the nations with the highest education levels. The literacy rate is remarkably high, reaching 99% among young people over the age of 15. This reflects the country's strong commitment to education from an early age. In the Japanese language, insults tend to be milder compared to other languages, often equivalent to expressions like idiot or fool. However, The impact of these words can vary greatly depending on the tone and volume used when saying them. Japanese is a fascinating language that uses 3 distinct writing systems, each with a specific function. Kanji is a set of ideographic characters, each representing a concept or complete word, and can have multiple pronunciations depending on the context. Hiragana, on the other hand, is mainly used for grammatical functions and words that don't have a corresponding kanji. It works like a syllabary for Japanese speakers. Katakana is used to transcribe foreign words and occasionally to highlight words, similar to the use of italics in other languages. This system adds a rich layer of nuance to Japanese writing, reflecting the complexity and cultural depth of the language. In Japan, the months of the year are named in a simple and practical way, using ordinal numbers. Instead of unique names like in many other cultures, each month is identified by its sequential number in the year. For example, September is called Kugatsu, which literally translates to 9th month. In Japanese culture, tipping at restaurants is not common. In fact, offering extra money can be interpreted as a gesture of charity, or a suggestion that the service wasn't worth what was already charged. So, trying to leave a tip might be seen negatively, as it implies that the service provided needs a supplement to reach its real value. In Japan, food takes center stage in everyday conversations, especially during meals. It's customary and almost mandatory to praise the dishes served. It's considered rude not to repeatedly express how delicious the food is. This behavior reflects the high value placed on cuisine and the act of sharing meals in the country. The work ethic in Japan is notoriously strict, with many people arriving at work well before the official start time and often working 15 to 18-hour days, frequently without adequate breaks for rest or meals. This intensity in the workplace has serious consequences, including an alarming number of deaths attributed to extreme exhaustion. Additionally, the constant stress and pressure contribute to a high suicide rate in the country. Aokigahara Forest, often referred to as the suicide forest, sadly symbolizes this grim reality. Aokigahara, located at the base of Mount Fuji on Honshu Island, is a dense and expansive forest known as the Sea of Trees, or Jukai. This place, marked by its natural beauty and quietness, carries a dark history and a heavy atmosphere. As night falls, the tone of conversations about Aokigahara shifts to cautious whispers. The forest is known for numerous disappearances and suicides, making it a place both feared and respected. Visitors are warned to stay on marked paths due to how easy it is to get lost in the dense vegetation, where even compasses fail because of magnetic anomalies. The forest's history includes grim tales from the Middle Ages, when desperate people during famines would take their elderly and weak family members to die alone in Aokigahara, away from any help. It's said that the spirits of these abandoned souls still wander the forest, driven by a desire for revenge. Although Japan no longer faces the famines of the past, Aokigahara remains a place where many choose to end their lives. In terms of suicide frequency, the forest is comparable only to the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Since 1970, police efforts to recover bodies have involved an annual budget of 5 million yen for search operations, revealing the lasting and profound impact Aokigahara has on Japanese culture and society. In Japan, the phenomenon of death from overwork is so common that there's a specific word for it: karoshi. This term is used to describe cases where individuals literally work themselves to death, reflecting a serious social issue. It's estimated that around 10,000 people lose their lives annually due to this condition, highlighting the intensity and extreme demands of the work environment in the country. In the northern regions of Japan, an ingenious solution for the harsh winter is the installation of heating systems under the sidewalks, ensuring they stay ice-free. On the other hand, unlike what many might expect, Japanese homes typically don't have central heating systems. Instead, each home relies on independent methods to stay warm during the colder months. In Japan, the death penalty is still a legal practice. Notably, for most of these executions, the justice minister often attends in person, highlighting the solemnity and seriousness with which the government handles these cases. Tokyo is often cited as one of the safest cities in the world. The safety and order in the city are so remarkable that even 6-year-old children can travel alone on public transportation without any worries. This level of security provides great peace of mind for both residents and visitors. In Japan, there's a traditional practice where men are often served before women. In restaurants, for example, it's common for men to place their orders and receive their drinks before the women. This courtesy extends to other institutions as well, where men are usually greeted before women. In many Japanese families, it's common for brothers and sisters to maintain a communicative distance, to the point where they don't exchange phone numbers or communicate regularly. This practice, which might seem unusual in other cultures, is considered normal in the family context of Japan. Exploring Japan reveals a wealth of fascinating curiosities and cultural quirks, reflecting a way of life quite different from ours. This country, with its unique culture and values, has an irresistible charm. We were particularly surprised to learn that in Japan, many streets don't have names, something unimaginable in many other places. Share in the comments what surprised you most about Japan, or something interesting you already knew.